TV.
Very much, Stephen Mbide. I'm wondering whether that question, have you gotten your money, was directed to me or to somebody else, because I haven't gotten any money, and believe me, I need money, but not in the ways that members of parliament are receiving it. Pretty much, I would love to get some money on account of the work that I do. All right, many thanks for that interview, and the fact that the Honourable MP is heading to a meeting that he has clearly stated that if anyone MP does not apparently attend, that will be the very first sign that they got the money. I think that's a bit of throwing it too much at anyone MP that might omit this particular press conference or meeting, because there are so many other factors that anybody could fail to show up for a meeting or two. But anyway, let's return to the studio and kickstart the conversation in a typical fashion of the Kickstarter. The reported, alleged, apparent 100 million Uganda shillings that was dished out and continues to be dished out to members of parliament. The Daily Monitor broke the story, and according to the reporters quoting their sources, that money came through beginning Monday night and was dished out throughout Tuesday. I do know that some members of parliament apparently are still receiving. We expected to host Brandon Chintu, the spokesperson of the parliamentary caucus of the National Resistance Movement. He is not yet here with us. Maybe, if the words of Francis Zake are anything to go by, he's still counting 50,000 notes. I'm told the money, mobile money agents around Parliament are dishing out very new notes, and that should be one of the signs that money is in circulation. However, in studio we have with us Sarah Bireete. She is the Executive Director at the Center for Constitutional Governance, and your perspective is always most welcome. Welcome to Morning at 10 TV this 10th day of April.
Thank you for inviting me, and good morning, viewers.
You come on the backdrop of a cash bonanza. There's a lot of money in circulation right now. I do not know whether you've had any one opportunity to scratch the feel of a 50,000 shilling note that has just been spat out of an ATM. That alone has a tendency of creating a good feel. No doubt. It doesn't matter where the money has come from. People feel good about money. But that is on a lighter note. Let me ask you the question. Are you certain that members of parliament have received 100 million Uganda shillings over the last 36 hours?
Well, three reasons why I am certain that they have. One is that President Museveni has created a tradition of bribing MPs right from 2005 during the debate on lifting term limits. That's when the public got the first shock of their lives that President Museveni, who had come to power on the premise of fighting corruption. And you know, that's point number 3 in the 10 points program, eliminating all forms of corruption and abuse of power. That he could indeed dish out money, obviously belonging to taxpayers, to achieve his end of ruling for life. Money was distributed at Mosa courts, and indeed it was true, although nobody came to officially accept that they had dished out money. The second time that is common to the public is again related to the president. The removal of age limit, 29 million, again dished out. People were even demanding for balance because they had been promised more money, and meetings were conducted with the chief whip then, Honorable Nankabira, and nobody came to officially acknowledge, and neither could they deny. The other instances where money has been dished out is, for example, the 40 million when Honorable Kagabo, came up and said he had received the money, and the National Unity Platform asked him to return the money, and then he returns the money and there's nobody to receive it, and then he's attacked by the speaker and other people. But money had been dished out. And the supplementary budget, dubious supplementary budget that was passed in 2003, again, money was dished out. And I know it was Christmas time. I know ministers who got that money, who are NRM MPs. Now the coffee bill, UPDF Act, obviously money has been dished out. So I have no reason to doubt.
But that would be a bit challenging, for example, if one was required to produce evidence. We ran earlier a video that was shared on X of members of parliament apparently making their way into the house late in the night, and the supposition then is that they were going to receive that particular money. We've not spoken to a member of parliament who has acknowledged receipt of that particular amount of money. If a judge asked us the question, where is the evidence right about now, what would we say?
So if, for example, you take the instance of the video, what was the activity at Parliament in the night? Was there plenary sitting? Is it normal for MPs to be crowding at Parliament at night? And why were they moving in and out in singular's? What was the event? So what would they say? What would they say?
What would we say if we were asked the question, what do you deduct from MPs entering where they work, their office, at night? Ideally, if I were called in any one moment in time at NTV at 3 a.m. and I'm coming in, would that be an issue?
If you get videos of Parliament on normal days, is that the movement that you find at Parliament at that time? No. So if you compare with other normal days, and Parliament has CCTV coverage, is that a normal situation to happen at Parliament? I would say no. Secondly, there are stories, I mean really clear evidence of MPs asking for money for a bailout, which is also not strange in Ugandan politics.
That is right.
Two, there is coordination, corroborated evidence. So evidence can be corroborated. To say people started asking for money during the coffee bill, people have been meeting, especially the NRM caucus, almost every week about UPDF, and there are evil clauses they are planning to enact. And it is normal, there is also a trend for the regime to bribe MPs whenever they are fronting evil clauses, like the ones they are pushing for in the UPDF Amendment Act. So why wouldn't they release the money for the MPs? On the other hand, you have MPs planning for elections. And most of them, if you go by the pay slips, most of them are bankrupt, indebted. And they are looking for money to go start campaigns, go dish out money, Easter is coming. So why wouldn't they then receive the money? And is there any instance when they have failed to receive the money? So for me, that's why I think that combining the three instances of the history of bribing MPs, the timing of the bribery, and the evidence of people asking for money, of people appointing the chief whip to look for money, and then people in the camera are entering the office of the chief whip. So can all that be coincidence, really?
Interesting. And this, of course, throws light on the reactions that do happen, especially when a judge has given a ruling. I'm sure that as the day progresses, we'll be able to establish exactly. We hope.
Of course, nobody will go to court. That's like the Kawempe election. Even when they threaten, they will not go.
Of course, our audience right now, I know there are so many people, they are initiated into the workings of the national resistance movement, and then there are those who are plainly looking at it without an iota of the facts with them. It will be very difficult to do the collaboration. But let me ask this question right about now. This money is coming from the president? Do you suspect it's coming from the speaker? Do you suspect it's coming from the NRM secretariat?
First, rule out the NRM secretariat.
All right.
They don't have such money, and they don't have reason to bribe anyone.
So we are left with the speaker and the president. I don't want to make an allegation too, right about now. So I'm asking the question, in your good offices, as an observer of the political developments and goings on in the country, who exactly is dishing out this money?
Who would have interest in compromising Parliament? I think for me that would be the first suspect. Who would have interest in compromising Parliament?
And who is that?
It's the executive. Because what's the role of Parliament?
You're speaking about, is it the executive as a collective?
The executive has one head, one principal, who is the president. In some instances, you've seen him saying he's not comfortable with Parliament, especially the previous Parliament.
That's right.
That were really executing their work as compared to the almost 900% rubber stamp that we have today. The president has, on public occasions, said he's very happy with the 11th Parliament. It does his bidding. So who would then be interested in either rewarding them or further compromising them? I think he's the one. And the corroborated stories are clear. They are pointing at him. Requests, we are bankrupt, we need a bailout. These requests were made to him. They were not made to any other person. Previously, who has compromised Parliament using money? He's the one. I know that if there are some people who appeared before some committees also have been alleged to compromise MPs. You know, what is very disturbing in all this saga is the fact that a temple of democracy like Parliament has turned itself into a house of deals. That you hear several stories, whether it is a local bailout, you hear stories of money, you hear stories of exaggerated amount as compared to what local required. You know, every other issue, be it the investigation on Karuma Dam, be it the Ruvoa saga, you hear money is exchanging hands in Parliament. That's very unfortunate. But officially the president has occasions where he has bribed Parliament, and these occasions are documented. So that's why every other information or story is pointing to him as an interested party in compromising Parliament.
Interesting there. As absurd as the observation would be for one to, for example, determine it as true, because there has been a trend to this, I'm obliged to put it forward as a hypothesis that the head of the executive has handed out this money. The reasons have been spoken about. Apparently is to say thank you for the coffee bill, given the controversies through which it had to maneuver to be passed. But we do understand that there is something also coming up, and it could be creating, rather clearing the pipeline for that, the anticipated passage of a new set of legislation to allow for return to civilians to the General Court Martial. And that is on account of what the Supreme Court ruled just a few months ago. Do you believe this is true?
Well, New Vision did publish the draft amendment of the UPDF Act. Among the key issues that the Attorney General was preparing is to reenact the repealed clauses of the UPDF Act by the Supreme Court that create provisions for trial of civilians in court-martial or military courts. And why is this matter of particular interest to the president? First, he expressed his anger in writing after the Supreme Court decision. So it's not a rumor that he was so angry about the outlawing of the mandate of military courts to try civilians. He has also expressed the same anger in speeches, and he is an interested party in a provision that puts civilians under the authority of military courts. Many of the victims of these military kangaroo courts have been his competitors. So he wants the court for political pressure of his competitors. One of his major competitors, Dr. Kizza Besigye, is still languishing in jail after being abducted in Nairobi and tried and remanded by the military courts, as much as now his file has moved to the civilian court. And he is the direct object of this anger. His trial sparked off outrage in the country and possibly led to the increased advocacy around outlawing the trial of civilians in the military courts. The drafts of the Attorney General that were published are to the effect that if you retired from the army, and then there is need for you to be tried in the military courts, the rank at which you retired will be reinstated and you will be assumed to be active.
Serving office.
And who is the target here? Dr. Besigye. It doesn't need any guessing. The other provision is also to the effect that if you are found in possession of military hardware, then you will be given a rank of private to be able to be fit for military trial. The rules governing recruitment of civilians in the army is that there must be consent. Civilians must consent to join the army. But here is a provision that will forcefully recruit Ugandans into the army for purposes of facing trial. So there are many evil clauses and intentions surrounding the upcoming amendment of the UPDF Act. And that would warrant bribing the MPs in advance so that you can remind them to also return the favor of the money you dished out towards Easter.
Let's further contextualize this matter, especially in light of what the interests of the chief of the executive would be. The National Resistance Movement has the numerical advantage in Parliament. Do you think that there is a possibility that this batch of legislators would not vote in favor of a piece of legislation that the president wants through on account of not receiving any amount of money?
Well, it's a matter of fact that the NRM enjoys comfortable majority in Parliament. But if I may ask before I answer your question, just to create a background for the answer, the NRM was fighting for one seat in Kawempe as if it was a do or die. Even when they enjoyed comfortable majority. So why were they fighting to the extent of driving members through a polling station as if they would die if they did not win the Kawempe seat? And thanks to the voters, they lost the seat and they've not died. So what was that push about? Do you think that they are comfortable with the so-called majority in Parliament? I don't think so. Otherwise, given the numbers that they control, and given that this Parliament is remaining with less than a year to end, the NRM was in a good position to even not front a candidate in Kawempe. They could have said that we are still mourning the deceased MP and that seat belongs to NUP. We are not fronting anyone. They enjoy comfortable majority. But they were fighting to the extent that they wanted to drive themselves to court. I wish they had those threats of petitioning surrounding Kawempe by election so that the country gets to discuss the impunity, the abuse, and the failures of electoral commission in that by-election. Interesting
developments here. Let me ask another question that might... There are opposition members of parliament who are being described as friendly, and it's reported they've also received money. When we were listening to Honorable Francis Zake as Stephen Mbide spoke to him earlier, he said, we are going to meet. And if any one of these opposition MPs does not come to this particular meeting that will end in a press conference with a statement on this cash, that would be the very first sign that they are culpable or have received this tranche. Opposition MPs right now who might have received the money, it is not a new twist in the politics of the opposition, is it?
Previously, some opposition MPs have received this money. I don't know what drives MPs to such desperation of subjecting themselves to shame and embarrassment with the, these monies. MPs are the most paid public servants in Uganda, earning money ranging from 40 to 60, sometimes 65 million, depending on the constituencies they are in. What makes them so desperate that they cannot live within their means? So that they are living life on the edge and they can fall for whatever dubious arrangement you thrown their way. The regime, on the other hand, 40 years in power, with the president seeking re-election to make 45 years, he has governed this country through what I would term as the 3 Ps: patronage, plunder, and pillage. And through patronage, we have people in institutions of governance that are not necessarily there on merit, but are there based on royalty, and some of them incompetent to hold such offices. And that has created weaknesses in the institutions of governance. If you look at plunder, we can use the official figures of the IGG. 10 trillion lost of the official budget. By the time government makes a report and says 10 trillion, you need to double that figure. Because this is a government agency. That is evidence of plunder, and with other issues like Lobowa Hospital and the rest. If you look at pillage, look at the country where we have been saying that people who have been beneficiaries of you said money for health, especially the persons living with HIV/AIDS, they need a cover from government to take over that obligation. And the government has not shown any interest in that cover. Thanks to the Global Fund for HIV/AIDS, we still have the life-saving medicines going. But the government is reluctant to move and cover the life-saving needs of Ugandans. But the president, on the other hand, is quick to dish out 50 billion to compromise MPs and entrench his leadership and have his desires met, including the unconstitutional attempt to reenact the repealed sections of the UPDF Act. So what do you make of that?
Interesting times for a country, especially in light of the economic hardships that are being experienced. We do not know the source of this money, whether it's part of a tranche from the supplementary budget or it came from the coffers or the vaults of the National Resistance Movement. The Daily Monitor and Nation Media Group, of course, is on ground and digging every aspect of the information that we can in order to establish all the fundamentals with regard to this developing story. But Sarah, when you look at what's happening, you ask the question, how desperate can MPs get? I think it's important to understand that members of parliament are first and they are Ugandans. And we all know parliament is a microcosm of what is happening in the country. When the actions of one man are questioned in a country that we know that has come to either believe or accept corruption as a necessary evil,
As a way of life.
As a way of life. Because I do not see the questioning of the 100 million lasting for the next 72 hours. Trust me, anyone event is bound to topple it and, of course, overshadow. But going forward, as Ugandans prepare for 2026 general election, it skews the ability of the voter to determine the leader that they want or the representative that they want if these MPs are armed with this kind of money. Where does this leave the civic space when it comes to sensitizing Ugandans, but most importantly, empowering them to be able to vote independently?
Well, let's look at Parliament and why it's strategic so that we draw context for your question. Parliament, as a temple for democracy, is supposed to be the eyes and ears of the people. It's supposed to promote constitutional governance.
Okay.
It's supposed to demonstrate the will of the people and hold government accountable and ensure that there is transparency and accountability through checks and balances.
Okay.
When it's compromised to the extent that it has no ability to question anything or prevent abuse, then what remains of the people? You have a collapse of democracy.
Sarah, let me leave this conversation at the collapse of democracy. One thing I know is that we can talk collapse of democracy for the next few hours or so, but Morning at 10 TV does not offer us that opportunity. These discussions will continue. Many thanks to you, Sarah Bireete, Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance for the